Welcome to themarketcapitalist.com. I'm here today with Dominico Johnston to talk about his new book, his second book, Enslaved by Consumption. Dominico, how are you doing?
Very good. How about yourself?
Great. Thanks for joining us. So let me start out with the first question. What was the motivation behind writing this book?
So Enslaved by Consumption's been a topic that I've bounced around in my head for a long time now. And personal finance I see as a topic that addresses a lot of things in dollars and cents, but really doesn't get to whether it's psychological or philosophical aspects that fall underneath the thought process of a lot of people in terms of what they're purchasing or what they're doing with their money. So in my mind, I wanted to bring it to something that's more relatable to people, because people talk about freedom a lot. I have the freedom to do this, or I have the choice to do whatever it may be. But I don't think it's an area that's really discussed in terms of personal finance. So Enslaved by Consumption, I wanted to bring it home in terms of if you're frivolously spending and fueling it by debt, you're causing yourself to be enslaved sometime in the future to somebody or something. So to convey that point to people and to realize that it's a choice that they're making to really negate their freedom in the future because of their frivolous consumption habits.
So with that being said, why is consumption a problem that needs to be addressed?
Consumption by itself doesn't need to be addressed, and I say that in the book because, and I don't want people to get the idea that this is a book that says that, stop buying things totally. No, that's not the point here. It's frivolous consumption. It's consumption that you're doing without a plan in mind. So the thing that I go back to is, people talk about putting the cart before the horse. Well, when you're putting your spending before your earnings, you're putting the cart before the horse. And when you don't have things in line or properly engaged with your personal finance habits, what you're doing to yourself is you're setting yourself up for failure. And it's not just failure, that went bad, ho-hum. It's failure that, I'm not going to be able to retire at the certain date that I want. I'm not going to be able to buy the house that I want. I'm not going to be able to send my kids to the school they want. It's all these different things that really matter in your life. A lot of the book is talking about priorities. You have goals in your life that you want to accomplish. And if you really set those out into the forefront and recognize that, you'll realize that the decisions that you're making in terms of what you're buying, are they really in line with that, or are they not? And if they're not, you need to address that. So that's really, consumption is not the problem. Is your consumption in line with what your goals are financially speaking?
Right, because doesn't consumption grow the economy?
Yes, and if nobody bought anything, I guess we'd be in a pretty dismal state, or we'd flip back to pre-industrial revolution times when we're making everything in our own home. So the economy nowadays, it's driven by that. You buy a car, you buy a computer, you go and you get your hair cut. Whatever that product or service is, it's allowing the economy to grow. My point is, we can talk about, I'm helping the economy all day by spending X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, but you're not really helping the economy if you're doing it in a way that's reckless for yourself. One, if it's frivolously, then really you're not addressing those greater needs in life, which ultimately have to get addressed at some point. You need shelter, you need food, you're going to have to retire at some point, whether you're able mentally or physically incapable to work. Those are things that society has to address, not only yourself. So personal finance goes beyond the personal aspect at certain times to the entire society. So if you're doing that in a way that is reasonable, that is along the lines of your plan, that does not require you to take out credit card debt or payday loans or whatever it is, then you're controlling it. So consumption really isn't the problem. It's not having your goals aligned is really the main problem here.
And Domenico, this is, as I said earlier, your second book. You have worked at several large organizations with finance. What is the best piece of financial advice you've ever received?
Actually, it's from a friend of mine, and we were talking about another person's purchase, and they were saying that I was telling him, it was a good deal that they got on. Well, I don't even remember the item. It was some type of, it's a widget. They bought a widget, and it was a great deal. But they were the goal for that person was to get out of debt, and they really didn't need that item. And he told me, he said that wasn't a good deal for them because it didn't get them to their ultimate goal. And there's certain things in life that you may know in your mind, but until you hear it, then it solidifies it. And I remember hearing that, and I've always kind of lived my life that way of what he was saying, but I never had the words spoken to me like that. And it hit me, and I said, that's a great message to communicate to people, that you have certain goals in life, and just because something's a good deal, it's not a good deal. There's a million different products and services out there for you to buy, and they all might be competitively priced, but if they don't relate to what you really want to accomplish in your life, then they're hindering you from attaining those goals.
And speaking of debt, what is the best advice you would give someone who's looking to get out of debt?
The best advice I'd give somebody that's looking to get out of debt would be to really focus on, like I'm talking about, goals and what's really in your future and why is it in your future. And if it really matters to you, then you'll put some type of emphasis or drive behind it. You can make a budget, you can look at your fixed and variable costs all day long. It doesn't make a darn bit of difference if it really doesn't mean anything to you. If getting out of debt does mean something to you because you want to own a home, because you want to send your kids to school, because you want to retire by a certain age, whatever that priority is, then you're more likely to do it. And that's really what it comes down to as far as looking at those things before you go and say, oh, I need to make a budget. Well, great, I need to make a budget, but a budget for what? That's really my best piece of financial advice. Don't really start with the financial dollars and cents of it. Start with what your priorities are in life.
And kind of dovetailing on that, what resources can someone use to get on financially stable ground?
I'd say the noodle between your ears is probably the best one. But there's a number of things, and I just, as far as budgets and looking at your fixed and variable costs, those are all very good things. But I think, having a good order of operations in terms of what my priorities are, then going and looking at budgets and tools like that. There's a million things online to do that. TheMarketCapitalist.com is a website that's operated by myself, and I have a number of models that are there for people to use. But again, I think the models are almost worthless unless you actually have the big picture in mind. You start from A and then go to B, not from B to A.
And how would someone remove themselves from the idea of keeping up with the Joneses? Always trying to have that key thing, that key widget.
Yeah, that's probably the most difficult question of them all, is how do you break that psychology or that philosophy that you have ingrained into yourself in terms of that person out there, whether it's the Joneses, sometimes I say the Kardashians because I think that's the latest and greatest thing, or whoever that icon is that you're looking towards to say, this is where I should be. One thing that I try to do in the book is looking at, okay, so if I don't have a historical basis for something, I can't really appreciate where I'm at today. So I go back and look at, okay, so from the time of the Industrial Revolution until now, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, your standard of living has increased immensely. And if you understand that, then you have a better perspective in terms of where you stand. Do I need everything right now? Well, maybe not. Again, it goes back to the goals, Nathan. If I have certain goals in my life that matter to me, it's not going to matter that I have, not myself, I wouldn't have a purse, but a purse, a pair of shoes, a car, whatever that item is that I'm finding trendy, that's really just satisfying my need because I want status or whatever that case may be. If I really have my goals and priorities in mind, then it's going to drive me away from keeping up with the Joneses or the Kardashians, because the Joneses and Kardashians don't matter. My priorities in life matter, and that's what I'm going to drive towards.
And what would you consider the most controversial part of Enslaved by Consumption? I
think in one of the chapters I start to talk about going back as far as when you're looking at how society has changed. Again, I guess a historical example in terms of we used to not have a lot of public assistance in different forms, and today we have more of those, at least in the United States and Western economies. because those have crept up and increased, the standard or the lowest, not necessarily the lowest rung, because you'll always have people falling outside of that, but essentially the low baseline has inched up. And for workers that are just above that baseline, I think there's a perception, and I relate this to my own experience. I used to work at Target back when I was in college, and I remember the first of the month, you would think it'd be a happy time for these people, but for a lot in the break room, the discussions or the commentary was very negative towards the people that were coming through and paying by I guess you used to call it food stamps, but it's EBT cards now.
Right.
When they were paying for that, because the typical Target employee or whatever department store you want to look at is not making much. Either they're making the minimum wage, or they're making a little bit more. So as far as spending power, their spending power is either on par with these people or just a little bit above. And so that perception, not only do you have, oh, am I keeping up with the Joneses, whoever that person on the pinnacle is up there that I need to keep up with, but you're also looking below yourself and you're saying, well, this person is receiving government assistance and they're able to live better than I do or on the same level that I do. I should be living better. So not necessarily you're going out and saying, I need to go get more education to get a better job. You're saying, oh, how can I buy more things, or how can I leverage my spending? Well, it's probably going to be through debt, which is going to, again, get you in the end because you're enslaving yourself to some future obligation that you have to pay. One of the other things I should mention too is, and it may be taken the wrong way, but I don't think it will be. I look at our personal finance situation, and I look at how people perceive nutrition or health. And with health, we have a very large stigmatism towards obesity. Oh, you're obese and it's bad, whatever it's in the media, the message is that way. And it's because you're consuming too much. Well, there's no real standard or ideal in terms of personal finance and consuming too much. Yes, somebody may be in debt, but it's not apparent. So there's no stigmatism with it because you can kind of hide it, where obesity you really can't hide. So you can have fancy car, fancy clothes, fancy whatever, and we'll say, oh, Nathan's, he must have it together. He's got X, Y, and Z. He's, living the American dream. But in reality, that American dream is going to be very costly for whether it's you, whether it's me, or whoever it is taking on that debt. There's something called opportunity costs that I know in an academic setting that word is thrown around in economics a lot, and I don't know as far as how familiar the general population is with it. But we're not only talking about, when we're talking about debt, that, oh, I've got to pay 3 times that much for that television I bought. We're talking about, yeah, you're having to pay 3 times for that television, but you're also giving up all these other things that you could have used that money for, whether it's retirement, whether it's something for your kids, all these opportunities that could have been that you don't see. And the things that you don't see are really the most dangerous in terms of things that ultimately we lack, whether it's in our own lives, whether it's in our family lives, or whether it's throughout society.
So it sounds like this book has a lot of tips and tools on prioritizing, keeping your financial house in order, and making sure that you realize your goals in the long run. Where can someone purchase this book?
If you go to themarketcapitalist.com, we have links there for directing you to Amazon. So you can either go to themarketcapitalist.com, find it there, or go directly to Amazon and search for Enslaved by Consumption, and you'll find it there. Currently, we have it in ebook, and we'll also, probably about a month from now, we'll have it in hardcover as well. So if you like to hold the book, you can hold the book. If you like to have it on the tablet or your computer screen, you can do either one.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Again, Enslaved by Consumption is out now at Amazon.com and soon to hardcover. Thanks so much, Dominico Johnston.
Thank you very much.